Dancing with La Diablesse. The sky was deep indigo, a canvas pierced with tiny silver stars as the moon hung, full and luminous, over the village of Saut D'eau. The air was heavy with the scent of sugarcane and the smoky hint of bonfires from the far-off hills. The village was alive with the rhythm of drums and the laughter of people celebrating the festival. Calypso melodies mixed with the heartbeat of tambour bamboo, and lanterns hung from branches, casting golden light that flickered across the gathered crowd. Ramon adjusted the collar of his shirt, smoothing it down, his eyes wide with excitement. He felt a mix of nerves and thrill. This was his first time joining the festival, alone, without his mother's watchful eyes. The freedom felt exhilarating, yet a small part of him wondered if he was truly ready for the night ahead. He felt grown, ready to join the men of the village, ready to flirt with the girls his friends always spoke about, their laughter thick with innuendo, and secrets he wasn't old enough to know until tonight. "Hey, Ramon, you're ready to make some mischief?" His friend Aaron slapped him on the back, a wide grin plastered on his face. Aaron was tall, his limbs gangly, like a tree that had grown too quickly. He had a knowing glint in his eye, one that made Ramon both nervous and excited. Ramon smiled, his heart pounding. "I think so. Let's see what the night holds." They moved through the crowd, Aaron leading, as they made their way toward the dance area. The ground was packed with people, their feet pounding on the soil in rhythm with the drums. Aaron nudged Ramon, pointing toward a group of young women standing at the edge of the dance floor. Their skirts swirled in vibrant colors as they giggled, their laughter carrying through the air like the tinkling of bells. "You see them, Ramon. Tonight, you better find yourself a dance partner." Ramon blushed but nodded. The music flowed around him, vibrant and alive, and for a moment the nervousness slipped away, replaced by excitement. He could feel the beat in his chest, in his bones. He stepped forward, his eyes scanning the dancers, searching for someone who might meet his gaze. And then he saw her. She stood just beyond the flickering light of the lanterns, her figure barely visible. Her dress was a deep red, flowing and elegant, and her eyes glimmered like dark, polished stones. She was tall, her posture graceful, and her lips curled into a smile that was at once inviting and mysterious. Ramon felt his heart leap, captivated by the mystery in her eyes, and the way her smile seemed to promise secrets untold. His feet moved almost on their own, as if drawn by an unseen force. He heard Aaron call out behind him, but the words were lost in the music as he approached her. "Would you like to dance?" Ramon asked, his voice shaky. The woman smiled, her eyes never leaving his. "Of course," she replied, her voice a melody of its own, smooth and rich like honey. She took his hand, her touch cool against his skin, and they moved to the music, her steps light and effortless. Ramon found himself lost in her presence, the world around them blurring as they swayed and spun to the rhythm. The crowd seemed to part for them, the dancers moving aside as if in reverence. "What is your name?" Ramon asked. They danced, his eyes locked on hers. "You may call me Eliza," she said, her lips curving into a playful smile. There was something strange about her, something that Ramon couldn't quite place. Her eyes seemed too bright, her smile too knowing, but the music made it hard to think, the rhythm pulling him deeper into the dance, deeper into her spell. A thought flickered in his mind. Something about her felt off, like a danger he couldn't quite grasp, but the music drowned it out. "Eliza, where do you come from? I haven't seen you around the village before," Ramon said, his voice breathless. "I come from places you have never been." she replied, her eyes flickering with something, almost mischievous. But tonight, I am here, just for you. Ramon felt a shiver run down his spine, but he ignored it, his gaze fixed on her face. She was beautiful, impossibly so, and the way she moved made him forget the warnings he had heard as a child. Warnings about La Diablesse, the devil woman who lured men away with her beauty, who danced them into the shadows, where they would be lost forever. Aaron's voice broke through the music, faint and distant. Ramon, boy, where you going? Ramon glanced back, his eyes catching Aaron's worried face, but Eliza's hand tightened around his, her fingers cool and firm. Don't look away, she whispered, her voice soft but commanding. Stay with me. Ramon turned back to her, his heart pounding. They moved away from the lantern light, the shadows growing thicker, the music fading into the background. The forest loomed before them, dark and mysterious, and Ramon could feel the chill of the night settle into his bones. Where are we going? He asked, his voice uncertain now. Somewhere special, Eliza said, her smile widening. Don't you trust me, Ramon? He hesitated, the stories of La Diablesse flashing through his mind, the tales of her cloven hoof, hidden beneath the folds of her skirt, the men who had followed her only to vanish, their names whispered in fear. He looked down, his breath catching in his throat as he saw her feet, one delicate bare foot and the other a cloven hoof, barely visible beneath the hem of her dress. Fear seized him, his heart hammering in his chest. He pulled back, trying to break free of her grip, but her hand held him fast, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that froze him in place. You asked me to dance, Ramon, she said, her voice soft, almost sad, and now you must finish what you started. Ramon's mind raced, his thoughts a blur of panic. He remembered his grandmother's words, her voice firm as she sat by the fire, her eyes filled with warning. If you ever meet La Diablesse, do not let her take you into the forest. Turn your clothes inside out, and she will lose her hold on you. With a desperate breath, Ramon reached for his shirt, his fingers trembling as he pulled it off and turned it inside out. Eliza's smile faltered, her eyes narrowing as she watched him. The air seemed to grow colder. The once lively forest, now eerily silent, as if holding its breath in anticipation. The air around them seemed to shift, the shadows growing darker, the chill deepening. What are you doing? She asked, her voice losing its melodic tone, turning sharp, almost angry. Ramon didn't answer. He stepped back, his eyes never leaving hers, his shirt now inside out and clutched tightly in his hands. The grip on his arm loosened, and for the first time, he saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Fear. You cannot leave, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rustling of the trees. Not now. But Ramon took another step back, then another. The forest seemed to tremble around them, the shadows shifting and swirling as if alive. Eliza's form began to waver, her beauty fading, her figure growing thin, almost skeletal, her eyes hollow and dark. Ramon turned and ran, his feet pounding against the earth, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He could hear her behind him, her voice calling out, growing fainter with each step he took. The lantern light was ahead, the music a distant echo, and he pushed himself forward, his heart pounding in his ears. He burst through the edge of the forest, stumbling back into the light of the festival. The music was loud again, the laughter of the villagers filling the air. Aaron was there, his eyes wide with shock as he grabbed Ramon's arm, pulling him close. "Ramon, what happened? Where you went?" Ramon looked back toward the forest, his chest heaving, but there was nothing there, only darkness, the trees swaying gently in the breeze. He turned to Aaron, his face pale, his eyes wide with fear. "It was her," he whispered, his voice trembling. "La Diablesse, I danced with her." Aaron's eyes widened, and he glanced toward the forest, then back at Ramon. "Boy, you're lucky, real lucky." Ramon nodded, his body still trembling, the weight of what had happened settling into his bones. He looked back at the crowd, the lanterns, the warmth of the festival, and he knew he had narrowly escaped something dark, something that would haunt his dreams for many nights to come. The music played on, the laughter and joy of the villagers echoing around them, but for Ramon the night had changed. The carefree laughter now felt almost hollow to him, a stark contrast to the fear that still gripped his heart. He envied their innocence, but the weight of his own experience made him feel disconnected, as though he no longer belonged to the same joyful world. He looked at the villagers differently now, how carefree they were, blissfully unaware of the dangers lurking just beyond the lights. He envied them, yet felt a sense of duty to protect them, knowing how close he had come to losing himself to the shadows. He had danced with La Diablesse, seen the darkness behind her beauty, and survived. And as he stood there, Aaron by his side, he knew he would never forget the chill of her touch, or the haunting look in her eyes as he broke free. The festival continued, the people oblivious to the danger that lurked just beyond the light. Ramon watched them, a newfound understanding in his heart. The stories were real, the warnings true, and he had faced the devil woman and lived to tell the tale. But he also knew that not everyone would be as lucky as he had been. "Come," Aaron said, his voice gentle, pulling Ramon back to the present. "Let's get something to drink. You need it." Ramon nodded, allowing his friend to lead him away, his eyes still glancing toward the forest, where the shadows seemed to dance in time with the music. The night was far from over, but Ramon knew he would never dance with a stranger again, not without first checking her feet. The drums pounded, the lanterns flickered, and the festival carried on. A celebration of life, of survival, of the thin line that separated the living from the spirits that watched from the shadows. Crick-crack. The story ends, but remember, the line between the living and the spirits is thin. Tread carefully, for the shadows always watch, and remember. Like, share, and subscribe.